We were planning the happiest day of our lives until I found out she invited the man who destroyed everything I built. Now, the wedding is off. And the truth about him and her finally came out. My cousin stole my company, destroyed my life, and then smiled at me like he was doing me a favor. I've never told this story to anyone outside my closest circle. Not because I'm ashamed, but because every time I try, I end up choking on the bitterness. But today, I need to get it out. Maybe for closure, maybe just to remind myself that I survived it. My name is Colton. I'm 33 now, living in Portland. On paper, I'm doing okay. I've got a stable job, a decent apartment, and a few good friends. But 5 years ago, I had everything. A dream startup, a promising future, and a person I trusted more than anyone in the world. His name was Davin. Davin isn't just my cousin. We practically grew up as brothers. After my mom died when I was 11, my dad spiraled hard. So I was taken in by my aunt, Davin's mom. That house became my home and Davin became my person. We were inseparable. Same high school, same taste in music, same obsession with tech. Fast forward to our 20s. I was the nerd who loved building things, writing code, dreaming big. Davin was more charismatic, slick with words, good at networking. We joked we were like Steve and Woz. I had the tech. He had the pitch. So when I decided to start a small SaaS company, it felt natural to bring him on as my co-founder. We worked out of my apartment, grinding through late nights on ramen and Red Bull. After a year, we had a working product, a growing user base, and actual investors starting to sniff around. And then came them. A Japanese tech firm reached out with interest in licensing our platform. It wasn't a buyout, but it was big money. Enough to expand the team and go legit. For a kid like me who had scraped his way out of grief and foster homes and part-time jobs, this was it. The moment where all the sacrifice finally made sense. We were supposed to meet the firm's reps on a Thursday. Tuesday morning, I woke up to 23 missed calls, all from unknown numbers. My email inbox was flooded, not with contracts, but with questions, accusations, legal threats. Apparently, someone had reported that our product was stolen, that the source code had been plagiarized from another company's proprietary system. Attached were proofs, side-by-side comparisons of code, licensing claims, even emails that I had supposedly sent, admitting to copying their infrastructure. They were all fake. Badly photoshopped if you knew what to look for, but real enough to spook the investors and tank the deal. Within 48 hours, the Japanese firm pulled out, my investors ghosted me, and my reputation in the Portland startup scene went up in flames. I remember sitting on my kitchen floor that night, laptop on my knees, just shaking. My inbox kept pinging with rejection after rejection. I kept refreshing the GitHub repo, trying to make sense of what was happening. I thought maybe I'd been hacked. Maybe someone out there just hated me. My mind couldn't even begin to go to the place it eventually landed. It wasn't until I checked our shared Slack that things started to click. Davin had archived every channel we used for development, deleted conversations, removed files. And his last message? Hey man, taking a few days off. Think we need space to reassess direction. That was it. No call. No explanation. Just a message and then radio silence. I called him. No answer. I drove to his apartment. Gone. I called his mom, my aunt, who awkwardly told me he was working on something new, and that maybe it's best if you two take a break. My heart dropped into my stomach. 2 weeks later, a friend forwarded me a link to a press release. Davin Crawford launches Innovatech AI, redefining data architecture for the cloud era. The screenshots on their homepage? My interface. The tagline? My pitch line. Word for word. I couldn't breathe. I literally felt my chest seize. He didn't just leave the company. He stole it, rebranded it, and pitched it as his own creation. The product I spent 2 years building in my bedroom while skipping birthdays and sleeping on a mattress on the floor, now under his name, with shiny new investors and corporate logos. I confronted him. Of course I did. I showed up at a networking event he was speaking at, waited until he stepped off stage, and pulled him aside. He didn't even flinch. Colton, he said, smiling like I was a stranger he hadn't just gutted. You're a genius, man, but you were never going to make it without someone who could actually sell. That's when I realized. He never respected me. He just used me. All those years of brotherhood were just a convenient stepping stone. I went after him legally, but it was useless. The codebase had been slightly modified, the emails scrubbed. I couldn't prove enough without bankrupting myself trying. And believe me, I was already broke. I lost everything. My savings, my apartment, my sense of self. I spent the next 8 months couch surfing, battling depression, watching someone else get rich off the bones of my dream. No apology. No remorse. Just Davin on TechCrunch panels talking about bootstrapping greatness. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, just when I finally started clawing my way back with a freelance gig and some small clients, someone else came into the picture. Someone who, at first, felt like the beginning of a new chapter. Her name was Maeve, and she would be the one person I thought I could trust, until she brought Daven back into my life without telling me. I met Maeve at probably the lowest point in my life. It was a gray January afternoon. I was at this tiny, half-dead cafe near the east side, nursing a coffee I couldn't afford, and pretending to edit a client's site just to keep my mind off everything I'd lost. She walked in like a breath of something I didn't realize I'd been suffocating without, wearing this oversized flannel, headphones still around her neck, eyes scanning for an outlet. I offered her mine. We started talking, and she made me laugh. That alone felt like a miracle. It wasn't forced or polite. It was stupid and honest and light. For the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about Davin, or the company, or the look on my face the moment I realized I'd been stabbed in the back by the only family I had left. I was just in that moment. With her. Maeve was a freelance designer who'd just moved to Portland. She was the kind of person who carried reusable chopsticks and made friends with stray cats. But she also listened. Like, really listened. No judgment, no fixing, just space to be. We started seeing each other more. Coffee turned into late-night Thai food, walks through the foggy streets downtown, and eventually, something I thought I'd stopped believing in. Trust. She never pressured me to talk about the past, but when I finally did, she sat quietly, holding my hand, eyes steady. When I told her everything about Davin, the betrayal, the lies, the nights I cried myself to sleep on a friend's futon, she didn't flinch. "I'm so sorry he did that to you," she said. "You didn't deserve any of it." And I believed her. That first year with Maeve felt like resurfacing after nearly drowning. She was patient with my panic, understanding with my silence. We didn't rush anything. We just built slowly, like two people patching holes in each other's foundations. When I got a stable job at a small but growing cybersecurity firm, she was the first to celebrate. When I moved into my own place again, she brought a cactus and named it Bruce. When I started pitching my own ideas again, terrified of being stolen from again, she told me she'd stand by me no matter what. So when I proposed, it wasn't some grand gesture. It was quiet. Just us on the roof of my apartment with Chinese takeout and a plastic ring from a vending machine. She said yes. We cried. It felt real. I told her early, really early, that Davin was a hard no. Not in a passive-aggressive way. I was crystal clear. "He's not just a toxic person," I said. "He's someone who actively tried to ruin me. I don't ever want him near me again, especially not on our wedding day." Maeve nodded. "Of course," she said. "That's your boundary, and I respect it." I believed her. For a while, everything felt okay. The venue was booked. The invites were designed. By her, obviously. We were picking out songs and tastings and laughing about how chaotic our families were going to be when they met. But then, the cracks started showing. It was subtle at first. Little things. A comment here, a suggestion there. "Do you think maybe you'll talk to Davin someday?" "No," I said, not even blinking. "Why would I?" She paused. "I mean, I get that he hurt you, but people change, right?" I looked at her, feeling something inside me shift. Some people do, but some people don't want to. She dropped it. For a while. But then it came back. Again and again. I'd come home from work and she'd be scrolling through photos of family reunions. "Don't you ever miss having that?" she asked. "No," I said. "Not if it means letting someone like him back in." And then one night, she said something that stopped me cold. "He's still your cousin, Colton." I stared at her. So? So maybe it's worth healing that. I stood up from the couch. "Maeve, this isn't about holding a grudge. This is about protecting myself. He stole from me. He lied to my face, and I had to rebuild my entire life from the ground up while he cashed in on my work." She looked down. I don't understand how you can carry that anger for so long." I felt it like a slap. Not just what she said, but what it implied. "It's not anger," I said quietly. "It's boundaries. And if you can't understand the difference, then maybe you don't understand me." Things got cold after that. Not hostile, just colder. Like she was pulling away but pretending not to. I chalked it up to wedding stress. Told myself it would pass. I should have trusted my gut. 2 weeks before the wedding, I noticed her acting strange, guarded, distracted. She brushed it off, said she was tired, said she was worried about seating arrangements and weather forecasts and centerpieces. But one night, she forgot to close her laptop. I wasn't snooping, I swear I wasn't. But as I went to plug in my phone next to the couch, the screen lit up. Gmail was open. And at the top of the inbox, bolded and unread, was a subject line that made my stomach drop. Ree, so excited to see you again, man. Maeve. Number. I clicked it. And there it was. A full email thread between Maeve and Davin. Started 3 months ago. She'd reached out to him, told him she wanted to hear his side, said she believed people deserved second chances, that she was planning to surprise me at the wedding, that it would be a full circle moment, that it could heal old wounds. I stood there frozen, rereading every word. My ears were ringing. My chest felt like it was splitting open. And at the very bottom of the thread, Davin had replied just the night before. He's still bitter? Typical Colton. Always stuck in the past. Whatever. I'll show up. Might be fun. That was the moment everything I thought I knew about Maeve shattered. She had lied to me. She had invited the man who destroyed me to my wedding. And she didn't even tell me. I heard the door open behind me. It was Maeve. She saw the screen. She saw my face. Her expression dropped. Colton, wait, I can explain. But I was already backing away. Don't, I said. My voice barely a whisper. Just don't. And in that second, I knew. She hadn't just broken my heart. She had reopened the wound Davin left and shoved the knife in deeper. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there on the couch, laptop still glowing beside me, Maeve sobbing quietly in the bedroom behind a closed door I refused to open. Every word in that email chain kept flashing through my mind like a bad movie on repeat. He's still bitter? Might be fun. That was fun to them, watching me squirm in my own wedding. Was I some twisted entertainment now? By morning, I was numb. Not angry, not sad, just hollow. When Maeve came out of the bedroom, her eyes were red and puffy. She started talking immediately, voice shaky but rehearsed, like she'd stayed up all night preparing a defense. I know what I did was wrong, but I didn't do it to hurt you, she said. I thought maybe if you saw him again, it would take the power away. That maybe it wouldn't haunt you so much. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her, and whatever she saw on my face made her falter. You said you wanted to move forward, she added, quieter now. I thought helping you confront it was the way. You thought betraying me was helping? I finally said, my voice low and tight. Maeve's eyes welled up again. It wasn't betrayal, Colton. It was a mistake. I truly thought I was doing the right thing. You were still so angry, so stuck in the past. That was when I snapped. Stop calling it anger. I stood up so fast the coffee table shook. Stop acting like I'm broken because I didn't want to forgive the man who stole my life. This wasn't some minor falling out. He gutted my career, my trust, my sanity. You weren't there when I couldn't afford rent. When I had to choose between groceries and electricity, you don't get to minimize that. Maeve froze. I kept going. And you didn't just talk to him. You invited him to our wedding, behind my back. After I told you, begged you, never to bring him into my life again. Her voice cracked. I just wanted closure. For who? I shot back. Because it wasn't for me. The silence after that was unbearable. She wiped her face, turned toward the door, and whispered, I'll give you space. As the door closed behind her, something inside me finally snapped free. I wasn't just heartbroken. I was done. The next few days were a blur of cancellations. The venue, the caterer, the DJ. I told friends the wedding was off, and I watched their expressions twist from surprise to pity to that awkward look of, I don't know what to say, so I'll just nod and blink a lot. Maeve moved out 2 days later. She didn't fight it. I think she knew there was nothing left to save. I expected to feel relief. I didn't. I felt wrecked. Not just by what she'd done, but by what it revealed. For years, I had convinced myself that I could rebuild my life by moving forward without really dealing with the damage. I thought if I avoided Davin, if I worked hard enough, if I poured myself into someone who loved me, it would all fade. But it didn't. It stayed buried. Quiet. Brewing. And Maeve, naively or not, ripped the lid off. A week later, I got a text from Davin. I hadn't blocked his number. I didn't think I needed to. Until now. Saw the wedding's off. Hope it wasn't because of me. No hard feelings either way. Maybe we grab a drink sometime? My hands shook as I read it. No apology, no remorse. Just smug familiarity, like nothing had happened. I stared at the message for a long time, fingers hovering over the screen. Then, finally, I responded. You can't destroy someone and then pretend it's water under the bridge. He replied 2 minutes later. It wasn't personal, man. It was business. You were too soft. I did what I had to do. That was it. That was the moment the final piece of me that once cared died. I blocked him. I deleted every photo, every backup file, every damn trace of him in my digital world. I sat down that night and wrote myself a letter. A real one. Pen and paper. I wrote about who I was before all of this, who I had become, and who I still wanted to be. And I promised myself, no more saving people at the cost of losing myself. But just when I thought that was the end of it, just when I believed I could finally begin the healing, I got a call from HR. It was a Friday afternoon. My manager, Olivia, knocked on my office door with that weird look bosses get when they have to say something they really don't want to say. Hey, Colton, got a minute? She came in, closed the door. So, we received a complaint, she said carefully. Someone submitted an anonymous tip to our corporate compliance line. They claim you plagiarized parts of your recent security audit report from another firm's documentation. My blood ran cold. What? I know, she said quickly. It seems far-fetched, but policy means we have to look into it. Legal's already involved. My throat dried up. I hadn't copied anything. I never would. Especially not after what happened with Davin. I knew better than anyone how fragile a reputation could be. I asked if I could see the complaint. She hesitated, then handed me a printed copy. Attached was a link to an anonymous file dump. When I opened it, I nearly threw up. There they were. Dozens of documents, screenshots, metadata trails, all designed to make it look like I had taken internal reports from a competing firm and passed them off as mine. And they were good. Almost too good. A little too familiar. And right at the bottom of the anonymous message was a digital signature. Not a name, just a phrase. Business, not personal. I felt my stomach drop, because I'd seen that exact phrase in Davin's last text. He wasn't just trying to show up at my wedding. He was trying to ruin me again. And this time, he wasn't just going after my past. He was coming for the life I'd finally started to rebuild. When I saw those forged documents, my first reaction wasn't fear. It was rage. Pure, sharp, clarifying rage. I had spent years pulling myself out of the wreckage Davin left behind. I'd rebuilt my life from scratch. And now, when I was finally stable, finally proud of where I'd landed, he was trying to burn it all down again. Not this time. This time, I wasn't the naive 20-something who froze while everything was ripped from me. I had learned. I had armor now, and I had receipts. The first thing I did was stay calm. I looked Olivia in the eye and said, "Give me 3 days. I'll prove it's fabricated." She hesitated. "Colton, you don't have to." "I do," I cut in, "and I will." That night, I didn't sleep. Again. But this time, I wasn't paralyzed. I was focused. I opened my old encrypted drives, the ones I hadn't touched in years, where I'd saved every version of my code, every file, every timestamp from the startup days. I had learned the hard way to keep records. Davin taught me that much. And luckily for me, the audit report they accused me of plagiarizing, it was built off a framework I had originally designed before Innovatech AI even existed. In other words, I was the origin. The next day, I started building a full digital trail. Timestamps, original repositories, even cloud backups with version history going back 4 years. I included Slack messages, email drafts, raw commits. Everything. It was exhausting. But I was methodical. I wasn't just defending myself, I was setting a trap. Because here's the thing, that anonymous complaint Davin sent, it had a signature style. Same phrasing, same formatting, same anonymous metadata tricks he used to tank me the first time. And this time, he got sloppy. In one of the metadata files, I found a trace IP embedded in an EXIF tag from a PDF export. Not enough to prove identity alone, but just enough to link the submission to a particular VPN provider, one I knew Davin used. He once bragged about using it when pirating software back in college. Said it masked everything. Except it didn't. Not if you knew where to look. By day 3, I had everything. And then I made a decision. I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to end this. I sent Olivia the full report, clean, clear, professional. Attached were legal affidavits from 2 former colleagues who verified the timeline of my original work. I even included a polite note. If legal requires further verification, I'm happy to provide sworn testimony and additional logs. Later that afternoon, she called. "Colton," she said, "this is impressive and thorough. Thank you." Then she paused. "And I hope you don't mind, but I forwarded your findings to our legal counsel and corporate security." My stomach tightened. Why? Her voice was calm but sharp. Because someone tried to destroy your career. Again. And we take that seriously. That night, I got another text. Not from Davin. From Maeve. I heard from your cousin. You need to stop this before it gets worse. I stared at the message. She still didn't get it. I didn't respond. Because the next morning, I got a call from corporate legal. And this time, they had something to show me. Apparently, the VPN Davin used wasn't just traceable. It was tied to a personal account that he'd accidentally used for billing through his old PayPal. That IP address? It matched login attempts to one of our public-facing company portals weeks before the complaint was filed. He hadn't just submitted fake evidence. He had actively tried to breach our network. That crossed the line from petty sabotage into criminal territory, and now the company was preparing to press charges. I should have felt satisfied, but I didn't. Not yet. Because this whole time, Davin had been walking around with the smug confidence of a man who thought he was untouchable, who thought he could steal, lie, manipulate, and still land on his feet. So I made one last move. I logged into an old, inactive Twitter account I'd used for my startup years ago. Back when we still had a loyal base of developers and small businesses who'd rooted for us before Davin ruined everything. And I posted one thread. Not to go viral, not for pity, but because people deserve to know. I laid out the facts. Dates. Proof. The original idea. The theft. The fake HR complaint. The entire war Davin had waged behind the scenes. No slander, no insults. Just the cold, brutal truth, with receipts. It didn't explode overnight. But in the niche tech community that still remembered our app, it spread. And then came the twist. The one I didn't see coming. A DM, from someone I hadn't heard from in over 5 years. The lead engineer of the Japanese firm that had backed out of the original licensing deal. He wrote, "We always suspected something was off back then. Couldn't prove it, but after seeing your thread and comparing what Innovatech AI built, it's clear now. Davin stole your work. Let's talk." I stared at the message for a full minute. Because 5 years ago, I'd lost everything. And now? Now the people who had once walked away were walking back. The moment I read that message from the Japanese engineer, my heart nearly stopped. For 5 years, I thought that door had closed forever. That the chance I'd lost because of Davin's sabotage was gone, buried under his lies and my silence. But now they were reaching out to me. I didn't waste time. I jumped on a video call with their team the very next day. And this time, I came prepared. I showed them everything. My code archives, the legal timeline, the proof of the sabotage, even the HR incident he tried to pull again just weeks ago. They listened quietly. When I finished, the lead engineer, Mr. Nakamura, nodded slowly. "We trusted the wrong person," he said, "and you paid the price." That call changed everything. 2 weeks later, they offered to license the original framework I'd built, the one Davin stole and rebranded. Not only that, they agreed to publicly acknowledge the origin of the concept in their upcoming release. And that was just the beginning. Corporate security from my company had already forwarded the IP and PayPal evidence to federal authorities. Turns out, this wasn't Davin's first time playing dirty with competitors. There were other complaints, other coincidences. People too scared or too broke to fight back. But not this time. They launched an investigation. Quietly. Carefully. A month later, I got the call I never expected to hear. "Mr. Colton," the agent said, "we've arrested Davin Crawford on charges of corporate espionage, wire fraud, and computer misuse. He's being held without bail pending formal indictment." I sat in my car in stunned silence for 5 whole minutes. Not because I was surprised he'd finally crossed the wrong line, but because it was over. No more looking over my shoulder. No more waiting for the next betrayal. No more wondering if I was overreacting or if the pain was something I should have just gotten over. Justice didn't come in a viral takedown. It came in silence, in evidence, in patience. And Davin? He lost everything. His company dropped him. His investors fled. And the tech world, once dazzled by his pitch decks and borrowed brilliance, finally saw him for what he was, a thief wearing charm as a mask. As for Maeve, we never spoke again. She sent one more message after the arrest broke news. I didn't know he'd take it that far. I just wanted to help. I didn't respond. Some apologies come too late. Some bridges burn for a reason. Instead, I focused on building the life he tried to steal. I moved into a new place. Nothing flashy, just mine. I kept working with the Japanese firm, now officially consulting on a global rollout. I finally reconnected with old friends who remembered who I was before all of this. And for the first time in years, I breathed. Truly breathed. not to survive, but to live. I stood on my balcony one evening, watching the sun sink into the Portland skyline, the contract in my hands, a quiet sense of peace in my chest. And I realized closure doesn't come when they say sorry. It comes when they can no longer hurt you. What I learned is this. Sometimes justice doesn't come quickly. But if you hold on to the truth and refuse to abandon yourself, it will come, right when it's meant to. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted the most, I want to hear your story. Drop it in the comments, because you're probably not as alone as you think. And if this story hit home for you, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss more real stories from people who've been to the edge and found their way back.